Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Barcast TV and to the first episode of Sunday at the Bar, a weekly Bar Academy talk show. I'm Barcast TV, of course, joined by a couple of the other mentors in the Bar Academy program. We have Driver here, who's going to be listening in, and I'll let the other two mentors introduce themselves.
Hey, I'm Hobo Joe, just here to help out.
Hi, I'm Zeteo. I'm also here to help people learn.
Yeah, thanks for showing up, guys. Let's get right into it. So we have a couple of things we're going to cover today. 2 open academy tickets, and then we're going to talk about a bot lab, just a generic bot lab open, and then we're going to look at the geo spot on Supreme Isthmus. So a lot to talk about, so let's get into it. I'll load up our first replay. Zeteo, you want to talk about the mentor program for a bit? Maybe how players can get involved in it, or maybe submit tickets?
Sure, yeah. So the mentorship program is basically, it's just a collection of people that are here to help new people learn the game. And we do that in a variety of ways. We do things like, in the Academy chat, we try to help answer questions. People there can submit their replays and we review them, and that sometimes means making a video on it or just doing it in text or even getting together one-on-one and discussing the replay itself. And once in a while we do things like host a clinic or this, Sunday night events where, we kind of go over a few topics and answer questions and whatnot.
Yeah, thanks for that. So, like Zeteo was saying, you can find us in the bar Discord. I think that's the easiest way to kind of get involved in the mentor program or like the academy program. This is going to be a weekly live show, so we should have people kind of popping in. Hello to everyone who's kind of showing up. I see some people jumping in the channel, so if you're watching the VOD after the fact, we might end up changing the time. Like, it happens weekly, but it should be happening every week, and hopefully we kind of have like a rotating group of mentors, topics we talk about, whatnot. So, be sure to check back in and follow up if you're interested. To the people who have shown up, welcome. I'm sharing my screen, and we're going to be reviewing first off a open academy ticket submitted by our man Sir Yodi here. So feel free to chime in or ask questions if you like, but we're just going to be maybe pointing out some of the broader brushstroke things he could work on, or maybe what he could improve on. Hopefully the frame rate is good for you guys looking or following along on the share screen. I think last time we had a bit of like artifacting issues going on.
That looks good to me.
Yeah, it seems just fine, so you're good.
Yeah, so like I said, feel free to ask questions if you're so inclined. And, Zeteo, Hobo Joe, if you guys kind of see anything you want to touch on, just chime in and interrupt me if you can.
Will do.
Maybe I should add a little bit of context to this. I'm going to open up the ticket he submitted, Sir Yodi, and just kind of maybe read off what he asked us to address if there's anything specific he asked for.
Okay, I wanted to ask, is there really a big difference between starting with solars and winds? Or is it just placebo?
What do you think, Zeteo?
So yeah, there is a pretty big difference. So solar collectors, they cost 150 metal each. For your arm, it's like, I think it's 155 for arm.
Yeah, it's 150 for arm.
And then winds is only 37 for arm and 45 for core. So winds, so solar collectors always produce 20. And wind produces whatever the speed currently is at. And so different maps have a different range of what the wind can be. So here, there's 16.9 wind speed. So each wind turbine will produce that much energy per second. and you're doing that at a third of the cost essentially. So like winds can be much more efficient than solar, which actually costs a lot for how much they produce.
Even if you reclaim them later, or is it just even then?
Yeah, you can reclaim them later for sure. But there are certain maps or certain instances where that wind is going to be just more efficient to open with, and other instances where, maybe you want to start with a solar collector, maybe 2 solar collectors, and then transition into wind and eventually reclaim those solar collectors to get that metal back.
Do you mind pausing for a second, Barcast? So another thing to think about is when the game is starting and you're building your first energy, you should be looking at the current wind speed to decide if you should be building solars or wind. So in this particular case, after you build 3 mexes, you're going to be completely out of energy. So it's usually best to build a solar because they cost no energy to make. But then after the first solar, the wind speed was at 17. And he should have skipped the second solar and built winds instead, because it would have saved him a ton of metal and produced more energy.
Yeah, if I could add on to that, I think the biggest difference happens at the start of the game, where you're really limited by the amount of starting metal you have. So opening double solar is completely safe and it works 100% of the time, but you might be at a slight disadvantage metal wise, where it's like, oh, you can't get like 3 cons straight away. You might have to go into like 2 cons and just the rest grunts. So I think that's the biggest difference would be at the start of the game.
All right, that's what I thought. Okay, thanks.
So, and that's a great thing to touch on here is, see, like, he doesn't open con first, right? And wind was really healthy. Like, say if he had a full energy bar, I would say assist the factory and get this con out. He actually went resbot first, but now that he's at basically no E, let me pause it. He has like no E, and he could have been making wind turbines like this whole time. Like even after like the factory finishes, I would immediately start a wind turbine because it'll be like 50% done before your first unit even starts making. But he doesn't have the wind. He doesn't have energy in the bank to assist his factory with your comm. So if that's not the case, you should be adding on wind turbines.
Yeah, I try to look at it as like if energy is very low, it's kind of like an emergency. You want to fix that issue ASAP, whatever that time is that happens. Like if it's early on, if it's a little bit later, maybe you add a bunch of metal extractors on and you have some extra build power and you just like run out of energy. Well, now it's time to like add that back, because whenever your energy bar is completely gone, now things like metal extractors can't extract more metal. Commander can't degun. Certain units can't attack, and so it becomes like a big problem if that's not rectified right away.
Something I noticed about solar, people who like solar openings, is that sometimes solar openings are used if there's a really critical or a really aggressive unit that needs to come out that needs energy. Because even if the wind is higher than 5, the solar collector will be ahead, because it doesn't cost energy. It will be ahead in energy for a while until equivalent winds would have caught up. Of course, it costs a lot of metal.
I think the metal cost is just the biggest thing at the start of the game. It's like, from what I've seen, most people in the academy or who are submitting replays haven't gotten down like spending your starting metal even super efficiently. So balancing spending your metal E at the start of the game and like where your commander is and your commander's build power, I think is what most newer players struggle with the most. Like, or the easiest thing they could improve on and yield a larger turn is that part of the game.
Yeah, generally the metal is the most important thing, or like it takes BP to reclaim it anyways.
I've been personally in my own games, I've been say I go biolab open and I'm forced to make 2 solars. I won't add more than 2 solars. I'll get my energy storage up and I'll try and get A solars, like at least one, and then I'll reclaim my basic ones. And I think it's a great fix. Like if you don't have if you don't have metal and you have pretty solid E on the wind map, you can just reclaim these solars and add them. Actually, the build power part of it, I think it isn't as big of a deal than like, oh, I need 150 metal right now, and it's sitting right here in my base making 20 E.
Especially since you can use resbots to reclaim them and they're not using their build power to actually construct anything.
Sorry, my pan is kind of messed up. What do you guys think of this so far? Do you have any comments?
Let's see. He's got a solar. That's great. Energy looks fine. Metal looks fine. I would say, maybe think about adding on some build power since, well, actually, no, the metal is draining, so actually he's fine on that too for now.
Yeah,
Just
3
like
cons
expanding
is
out.
quite a bit at this stage, I would say.
Yeah,
I
like 2 for a minute for me.
I think he might have moved out with his comm a little too early. Even like he still has 500 metal in the bank, and maybe could have made 8 more wind turbines in a construction turret before moving. I mean, he's got a lot of metal to spend here.
Yeah, the general rule of thumb I use is in smaller games, you don't really need your comm on the front line as much as in larger games because there's just too much area for the comm to actually cover, as opposed to an AV8, which usually has narrow lanes and the comm can hold back a lot. But in smaller games, you have more mexes available, so you can expand a bunch with cons and just use the commander to boost really hard early on.
I would add to that even like boosting as a bot player feels a little boosting with the comm as a bot player feels a little stronger because you just get so many grunts out super quickly. Like, the one thing I'm noticing here too is like the number of expanding cons. Touching back into like if we keep the commander in the main base, I can see like one path here with a con, another path here, and like another path, something like this, right? So having, and like this size map, I would shoot for having 3 expanding cons, and defending it with radar and units, defending those.
Yeah, it's a good way to play it.
I think
Personally, I like moving my comm up in this kind of situation because that even though it's like a large area, having the comm move up kind of like tightens that area to a smaller spot so that your grunts or whatnot have less to like really worry about as the commander defends the area around him and moves up, gets those extractors. Yeah, right.
So you could like come up here, grab the mechs, add an LLT, maybe a radar here, and then keep walking. And then, like you said, if your commander is in this circle, in this 3 mechs over here, your grunts only really have to protect this area. You put a radar here, and then you keep your grunts here, and then suddenly you can respond to any radar signatures you might see.
Yeah, and just having the commander in that 3 mech spot, it's gonna pretty much guarantee that you're gonna keep it for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and outside of the economy stuff, I think one mistake this player made is not scouting enough with a couple of the early grunts. They're just now sending their first ones to the other side of the map at 3.5 minutes, and they could have been doing that quite a bit sooner, just to get a sense of who they're facing and what type of labs they have.
Did he make any reses?
He made 1.
I should have made at least another one for E. Probably be able to boost a bit more on the factory.
I just want to shout out and say, hey, Dark Spirit, I see you here, man. And I wanted to say I downloaded one of your GeoSpot games. We're going to cover that later on, so hopefully maybe you, if you feel comfortable, you can maybe point out some of the finer things we might have missed on that.
Hello, oh my god. I'm not a geo specialist, but I have a couple of games.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sure it'll be good for what we're doing here. So. What do you think about these rocket bots coming out?
Personally, I think it's a little bit early because
there's so
much space to cover that you want something faster like a grunt.
Yeah, keep riding.
It can be so value against LLTs though.
It can, but there's so much space to cover at this stage in the game that there's not going to be LOTs everywhere, so there's a lot of gaps that you can send.
Right? Yeah.
You can
There's
send
lots of potential to just run around the LLTs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A little early, I think you're right.
Until it's locked up, there's no reason to have LLTs, I guess.
Even like 1 or 2, it just adds so much threat if you do come up to one. I wouldn't go more than that this early though.
Yeah, I probably
Yeah,
would
that's
have
what I was
waited
gonna
till
say
5
is-
or 6 minutes to start making those.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that, like, yeah, it's like fine to have a couple for those LLTs. You can like knock them down and then runs through, you know, that small area. But like, yeah, this early, it'd be a lot to do, a lot of rockets.
So I'm gonna pause it here, and I don't want to get too far into this because we have a lot of talk about. But maybe let's take a look at another player's position. Let's see pop-ups over here and look and compare his bot open to this player's here. Well, it can start by looking at the like total metal produced. To pop-ups is at 3.7k. So 1.1k up on metal produced. That's pretty big. 4 minutes 30 seconds. But also, I would note that just the amount of E he has and the build power in the main, like he has more wind already built, more con turrets already built, and maybe I still think pop-ups could even have a little more E at this time. But you guys have anything else you kind of want to add to this? Because this is some like big, I think this is some big stuff, like not nailing down like a specific open or spending that starting metal. I think that's enough stuff to comment on for real.
One small thing is that Yodi is making a storage, which actually, given the amount of wind he has, I think is kind of a waste. I think he should have more wind before making that storage.
Yeah, that's a bit early.
Like if he should have more wind, and if he had the amount of wind he should have, then storage would be a good idea. But
yeah, I'd say 275 E per second. This can be messed with, of course, but I think that's a decent amount. So maybe, what is that? 4 or 5 more, 6, 7 more.
Yeah.
Wind turbines.
Mm-hmm.
And then around 400 E per second for the A solar. And at that point, if you have an E storage and an A solar up, I would feel free to reclaim any solar collectors you have. And I'll add to that, having con turrets makes reclaiming solars a lot easier because they, of course, they have a large build range.
Yeah, I'll just add to that and say that's, given that he has 2 solar, he doesn't really need to have the storage quite yet either for that reason.
Yeah.
Because like a lot of the E that he's getting is from solar.
It's got so much more metal. Unbelievable. Even with the 2 con turrets, you'd think he'd be smashing through it. Compared to Sir Yodi. He hasn't even kept the back mexes. He's got something doing it, doesn't he? He's just got a con going for them.
He might have reclaimed some rocks in the center.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that's a function of rocks or maybe he was even fed at some point, but there is a lot of metal reclaim on the front part, and that could even be another argument to be more aggressive with your grunts on this map to try and contest this mid reclaim with that early resbot and then move into the E. Like trying to use the resbots for E, but I would prioritize gobbling up this metal on the map as fast as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to add to that and just say that, every bit of metal that you find in the middle of the map and that you reclaim is kind of a big deal because, like, say it's just 100 metal. Well, that 100 metal is not just going in your pocket. It's 100 metal that's not going into their pocket. So you're actually, like, creating a difference of 200 metal. And so if you're thinking about, like, here's a pile of rocks that's 300, here's another pile that's 200, like all this adds up together and becomes kind of a big deal.
That is
just by that same notion, every mex you don't have capped for a minute is however much metal that mex gives, 200 or whatever, or 180. I don't know what all the spots are. It's saying if you build a reza to get 100 metal, you could also potentially build a con to cap a mex.
That's true, and I would say most bot opens on a map like this, you would just go resbot con, grunt con, something like that. So it's like they both have their function and are very worthwhile investments at the start of the game. Any other thoughts?
Personally, when I see metal reclaim in the middle, I usually open with 1 resbot, 2 grunts, and then a con, and then I just do like 2 more grunts and then another constructor and just like apply some pressure, defend my resbot, and get that reclaim. There's been a couple of instances where I can even get that resbot into the enemy base and reclaim rocks behind their base that they just didn't even know that was there.
You could even go for a mix.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that on a high level 2v2 actually just the other day. One of the players didn't even grab all the metal behind their base on, what is it, Fallendale? And it was like 10 minutes into the game, they had like 300 metal right behind their base.
Yeah, it's actually a very common thing.
How does the pinging work if you start reclaiming someone's mechs or geo? Is it just when it starts? Because you could get lucky and attack someone and start reclaiming a geo like on that other map at the back. Maybe you could get lucky and get it.
I'm not sure how it alerts you if like one of your structures is being reclaimed or captured.
There's no alert. Good luck getting a comm back there.
I just want to say welcome to everyone who's kind of showed up maybe in the past couple minutes. And if you guys have questions or want to chime in, feel free to ask. This is going to be another ticket that was submitted to the Bar Academy here. We're going to be looking at our German friend here, Mr. Schmutz, playing as the cyan pieces. If you give me a second, I'll pull up what he submitted and we can add some context to this.
I think Driver would like me to add that there's a reclaim field option that shows you like the reclaim in the area. I think it's on by default, but you know, in case anyone has that turned off, it does help a lot.
Other thing with reclaiming is if you just draw a giant circle, it goes for everything in there. I don't know if this has been covered, but if you just go for the rocks, if you first click reclaim and then drag it out, it'll only go for the rocks. So you can do a big reclaim just for the metal that way.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, important to point out this map probably has the most metal reclaim of any commonly played map.
Mm-hmm.
So you should
Yeah, this is
absolutely
a
prioritize.
big deal on this map.
Yeah, look at that. 8,000 metal just sitting on the ground.
This is the map where I got a res bot into the back and reclaimed like 3 of those rock piles.
It's also typically
It's
like a
OP.
5v5, 4v4, so it's a big map for this many players.
So
And it's a sizable map, but there's really only like the 3 choke points, so like it's fine doing 3s here.
So it relegates you to the ground. Fine.
Straight away I'm seeing something here that we don't have a proper build really, I'd say. This is kind of fast. Maybe you might get lucky with the 45, but I would say like going solar collector wind turbine at least with this wind speed would have been better. You want about 60 E per tick to get this bot lab up.
You really don't want to take 3 mexes. It's usually suboptimal.
It kind of depends. Like a vehicle opens, like you kind of need 3 mexes quickly. But for bots, like two mex bots open is fairly standard. I just don't think like 2 mex solar bot lab is fairly optimal. I think it'd be like 2 mex solar wind bot lab at 15 wind speed.
It's pretty much always better to get 3 mex starts unless on a map like this you're trying to rush a res bot for that reclaim, which he didn't do. He went grunt con. That's his first things.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is yeah, it kind of depends on how aggressive you're trying to be early. I mean, because if you're not trying to be aggressive early, then you might as well just grab the 3 and just have that extra income coming in.
He's done something I absolutely hate. Is he's built a unit and he's just gone, I'm going to guard from ticks or something. When he could just be much more aggressive with it. You know, he's rushed that out. He could have got it to their entrance or tried to, snipe mexes with it. He's done that as his first unit.
Yeah, that's something I was going to add to is on a map this large, going 2 mex. So like 2 mex starts, you obviously get your bot lab up quicker. You can go con first. You could go resbot con grunt and get away with it and not really feel pressured. So I think you could even go so far as maybe like resbot 2 cons into grunts. But I was gonna just right here between like the 3 mech start and the 2 mech start, you can find the optimal amount of greed, I suppose, by going con first instead of unit first.
It's a slightly long walk on this map for 3 mexes, so it seems fair. At this point, is there someone who's done a 3 mex? Could you compare the metal produced to someone versus 2? How significant is it?
I'm not sure who exactly did 3 mechs or not.
It's like Monkey might have gone all 4.
It's got an extra 50 metal about.
So I think Monkey went all 4, which I think is probably too much, but he's a bit of metal ahead, but that might cost him in the long run if they're not getting stuff out as soon.
I would have to watch and double check, but I mean, I think we all
he's
agree, like 3 mech spots. It could be on a map this large. It might be slightly better before the factory. And maybe.
Yeah, personally, I'm a big fan of the 2 mechs just so you can get that red spot out to start reclaiming. And
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of problems here actually. So wind was very strong on this map, and he has 3 solars made already. He's almost adding out of his starting metal, and he's got a full energy bar. So somewhere along the way, I feel like we could have used our commander's build power to assist our lab more, like less solar, more wind, more assisting the lab, and like burning through this E, because it's like I don't really like seeing that.
yeah, I think I want to mention too that in terms of like build time, solar can be more efficient, but that happens around 12 wind speed. So if the wind's above that, then it's even more efficient to do it in terms of time. So it's not only more resource efficient, it's more build time efficient as well. So like with the wind being as high as it is, he could have gotten away with winds to have even more energy coming in with the same results, essentially. Or even if he cut back on wind a little bit, he could have assisted the lab a lot more.
I'm wondering
to go in with what you were saying.
I'm wondering if this would be a good segue to just look at a bot lab open from another player, like a higher ranked player, and see maybe how they spend that starting metal and what they're using how they're using their commander's build power.
I think looking at Flaca could be useful because he also did a 2 mech start, but he's being much more aggressive with his units, and he got res bots out for reclaim.
He's down on metal at the moment, but yeah.
Got units in the enemy base though.
Yeah, that's really strong. Let me do this. Let's restart the replay, and we'll watch Flaca here, because I think he's got 4 construction bots out already and has been aggressive with units. So I think this is worth looking at to just contrast. For those of you who kind of didn't catch the introduction, this is Sunday at the Bar. I'm joined by Zeteo, Hobo, Joe, and Driver's even here listening in. He can't talk at the moment, but we've got a couple of the mentors here. This is ran through the Bar Academy. If you're interested in kind of joining or participating, there's the Bar Academy chat channel you can post questions to. You can tag mentors, submit replays at, so feel free to kind of get involved and find some newer players you can improve with, or if you want to help out other players, you can answer questions yourself and start the conversation that way.
And we'll hopefully be doing this every week.
Yeah, I think we could do adjust the time some, and maybe we'll just alternate times for NA and EU week to week. Every other week we'd switch which ones accommodate which time zones a little better. But yeah, hopefully it's done every week. I like that idea.
Yeah, I like that. A little something for everybody.
One thing I find interesting about Flaca's start here is that he chose to spawn next to the mexes that are further apart, which feels like a mistake to me. If he had started on those right-hand side mexes there, he could have got both with little to no walking time.
Yeah, you're totally right.
Yeah, this circle there too, you were going to go for 3, starting where that inner circle is a lot closer than where he started.
But see, he goes solar, wind turbine, sitting at 14 wind, a full E bar. I think he could have gotten away with one solar, one wind turbine here. He's sitting at plus 61, which is more than enough to make a bot lab.
It's decent for insurance, though, in case the wind speed drops while you're building the lab.
Mm-hmm.
I like this, though. He's got 4 wind turbines queued up immediately after the factory. Maybe could have spread those out some or tucked them up against the lab some. Maybe a SimCity adjustment we could make, but nevertheless, I think that's still good.
Tiny little thing is he there's enough bit of turning. Like, I know it seems tiny, but if you put the winds more towards the bot lab, com doesn't turn as much.
No, that's a great point. Good catch there. You can
It's
absolutely
tiny.
do that. No, it's really nice. I also like it the fact like this is what your commander can actually attack and defend. So like you just have to have units here that protect anything coming and attacking your wind turbines this way. But if a proper SimCity, you can really not abuse but capitalize on the commander's attack radius and range a little better. Apart from saving some time like rotating with the build power, like you called out.
Yeah, but you can also potentially switch between assisting the lab better too. So maybe
Yeah,
it's not that
yeah.
tiny.
And to your point, I would say let's look at what we have. We have a full E bar, and we're making E. So I would say like, if you've gone 2 mechs and you've done this start, I would do like 1 tick into con because like you can start making the wind turbines immediately after the factory finishes, and you can get one up. And not waste build power that way with your commander. But when the tick finished, I think if he had moved into a construction bot and then started assisting it with his commander, he could have burned through a lot of this E and gotten that build power out a lot quicker.
Yeah, I think the point about turning is a really good one, because if he had placed the next turbine right next to the lab, he could have switched between assisting the lab and assisting the turbine without wasting any time. So if his energy's full, he could assist the lab for a couple of seconds and then finish the turbine without it having lost any build progress.
They're just about wasting E on this team too. I think they overbuilt. Like, sharing is another thing to consider.
Yeah, we see like combined they have a little over 1.2k energy excess, and like as a percentage of 20k, what is that? 5 like. Sorry, that's not 10% almost, but it's quite a bit. I mean, this could have been tidied up some, and I would say for most players, if you want to know a way you can improve, look at this energy excess at 5 minutes into the game, 10 minutes into the game, and 15 minutes into the game, and ask yourself, how could I have lowered that number? And that's just like an instant way you can find an adjustment and an improvement. So 5 ticks into Resbot. Still pretty solid with not accessing E, I don't think. And he's finally getting a con out. He's assisting the factory. Really good use of build power here. And another con. So like this is a point we can kind of touch on, is like, okay, you're being aggressive with ticks, distracting your opponent. Perfect opportunity to add build power, and the more you can find these opportunities as a bot player, it's like, oh, I'm raiding, harassing, I'm keeping my opponent busy microing, let me add on some build power before I decide to move out with my commander.
And with how much metal he gets from that res bot that he got out early, he won't have to walk his con for quite a while.
Even like using these ticks to search for enemy res bots or search for grunts. Like if you know there's grunts over here on this left side, then yeah, move your res bot to the left. So it's like the ticks, you scouting while attacking, I think is a big theme in RTSs.
And it was a good adjustment too. He sent all his ticks to the right side to face the red player, but he had grunts in the gap, and grunts will annihilate a stream of ticks by themselves. So he moved all his ticks over to the other gap, which was uncovered, and now he's using them to harass a player who can't stop them.
So I'd like to compare this start from Flaca here compared to maybe the first game we watched. So the commander, I think there's a little bit different amount of metal of it reclaim available on the map, but the situations are fairly similar. Like a bot lab open, the commander's moving out of the main base, but now we have 3 cons finished. One is 25% done. We have another con that can be used to expand, which he's going towards over here, and the commander's moving out. So we have like a little more E, a little more build power. Perhaps we've used our resbot in a more efficient way, and I think this is just a little bit better of a position than the first 2 replays we watched.
I think the only mistake I'd point out here is that he probably should have placed an LLT down before he walked his comm out, because he has no units in his base to protect it.
At least a radar, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would say, at least a radar.
It's got vision on both entrances, though.
Yeah, that's true. It's I think it's just like a redundancy too, and you might not have had that vision there 100% of the match. So, like, what if there's a tick back here, like you might not know about, or I don't know. You're probably right in that sense. Like, yeah, you can save the 25 metal, or what is it, 40?
80,
60, isn't it?
Radar.
I don't mind at least an LOT. Like an LOT here would protect the backside of your base, and then the front of your base is covered by, like, for a moment the commander moving out, and then of course the output of your factory is going to be covering this side. So, you guys have any other thoughts we can kind of comment on before maybe moving on?
I mean, I think the reason he didn't build an LOT is because he saw the grunts coming in from the right side, and he's already covering that choke point with pawns. So he's taken steps to avoid getting ganked here, but they could still squeeze by, which is why I would suggest an LOT anyway.
It's a safe.
Yeah, but he's got build power at his base.
Yeah.
Probably deal with it.
Yeah, I'm personally a fan of the radar if you have the APM and map awareness to see the stuff coming in from multiple areas, because you just don't know if there's something unless you're combing a unit through that area. Like if there's just like a super early tick or something that got lost over there or something.
And we can even look at the radius on this radar. It seems like a decent one to place.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of vision. Let's look at another bot lab open from a higher rated player. This is taken in the context of 2v2s, but 2v2s play very close to 1v1s, I'd say. So this should be sufficient for our purposes.
Oh, one last thing about that last match is he went arm with bots. Obviously, there's a bit of pawn grunt play there, but on those hills, I think the pawns probably have the advantage actually, which they usually don't.
Yeah, perhaps the one moment where pawns would have an advantage over grunts.
And ticks are really good on open maps with lots of reclaim, because you can chase down res bots really, really easily.
That's huge, and maybe a little more advanced than perhaps the level some of the players participating in the academy. I mean, you guys are here and talking about it, so yeah, that's. I mean, if you can snipe early res bots, it's just huge. It can't speak to
value.
Mm-hmm.
So I can introduce this game if y'all like. This was taken from the most recent 2v2 tournament played yesterday, January 27th, 2024. So we're going to be looking at Ragna's open. I'm pretty sure he opened bots on this map, and I really like how Ragna adds build power as a bot player. So let's maybe take a special note of that, and see how he does it.
This is a very, very tiny note, but since we were talking about turning before, it's really good practice to make sure the first mechs that you place is to the south of your commander, because commanders always spawn facing south. So you don't have to waste the very first second of the game turning your commander around to build something to the north.
Great point. Yep.
I didn't know that.
It turns as it spawns though, so you don't often see it.
Yeah.
So notice the wind speed here. He's adjusting his open, and wind is 12 on this map, so this is kind of dicey. I think Andy didn't even make a single wind on this map, so completely stylistic choice, I think. But notice how he goes up to 4 wind turbines, and he's sitting at about now it's plus 73, but you want at least, just to reiterate, you want at least about 60 E per tick before putting down this first spot lab.
If wind had crashed, he might have been in trouble. He's barely keeping up with building it.
Yeah, but I mean, it worked out well, and maybe it's a little bit of a gamble in some regards, but something I've been experimenting with in my own games on, if I get into this situation, is adding a solar collector. Say I'm like 90% done on the factory, I'm out of E. Make the solar collector till about maybe 15%, let that E build up, and then finish the bot lab, and then swap back to the solar collector. You can do the same kind of thing off of a 3 mech start when you've ran out of E. Like, to just barely not stall, make the solar collector for like 3 or 4 seconds, or just a few seconds really, and then you can finish that third extractor and not stall at all with the E.
Yeah, just in case anyone doesn't know, when you stall on E at the start of the game, your mexes will stop producing metal. That's why it's really important to avoid it.
He's Cortex, right?
Yep.
So the Cortex, both the bot and vehicle factory have an opening animation. So you see he built a wind straight after. You can pretty much mostly build a wind before it opens and starts building. Well, it's different for Armada. So just note you should probably do that with your opening core.
Absolutely. And to add to that, he opens con first on a fairly large AV8 map. So con first. Not afraid of even at the 3 mech start. Not afraid of like a 1 mech tick rush, something like that. So still assisting that commander, or assisting the wind, and then burning through this E, trying to get that con out, stops producing, and then goes into wind turbine production. So notice that awareness of how much E is in the bar, and how much build power he has to spare.
No turning.
No turning. He sees the scout. His first grunt is almost done.
Or bad scout micro.
Yeah, actually it's a resbot even. So pretty greedy open. 3 mech start, con, resbot, then grunt. I think there's a bit of a mistake here actually. Notice how hard we're stalling on E. Of course the resbot is here to start reclaiming, but I want to say Bragno perhaps could have started a solar here, just to while he's getting up this radar, because radars actually take quite a bit of E to build. What's that? 630. A grunt is 880. A wind turbine is 175. Of course, the solar collector is 0. So I've seen a couple high level players, if they know they're making this early radar, they'll be making a solar collector with the commander to just make sure this bit of stalling doesn't happen.
I think the Reza first was probably the go.
And what is this, plus 60? We'll call it plus 60 this is getting. So basically 20 wind speed wind turbines is the value that this resbot is getting right now as far as energy production goes. And it's still not quite enough. Like, we're at 50% E. I guarantee you, as if this gets over 50%, we'll see Ragnar moving into assisting the factory. And that's what we see now, right? Trying to spend the starting metal. What is that? 1, 2, 3 grunts. He's got 4 grunts, into the second con. Really nice open. Look how perfect this is, right? The radar's here on the high ground. He's got a grunt at the choke point, grunt at this choke point, a grunt rotating to the attack path through this angle here, and then he has a grunt in the back of the base protecting this attack path here. So perfectly covered, doing a really good job of adding E, spending his E, assisting the factory, and of course adding build power.
Big con queue.
Yeah, 9. That's crazy. I wonder how far he'll actually get into that before he changes it.
And he's even making a construction turret right now. So this is really huge. Actually,
I love the tap, the tap and walk away. That's really good.
Yeah, I see Teddy do that a lot. Who's actually his teammate?
Poor Teddy gets bullied so hard with his cons. I remember this game.
Yeah, maybe
he loses like 4 construction vehicles at the start, I think.
Yeah, it's true. And I'm wondering if Ragnar played up perhaps a little bit too greedy, not defending his teammate. But maybe at this level of play, you can make an argument to have a stable enough vehicle open to defend yourself at 3 minutes and 30 seconds. It's not like he's getting 2v1 right now. I mean, this is just a couple of grunts coming in and doing their normal harassment thing. Granted, if these 5 grunts have showed up on Ragnar's side of the map, 5 grunts is going to get through here, right? 5 grunts is going to slip through here, so 5 grunts can come through here, right? So it's a bit of a greedy play, but I will say to that, like, Ragnar has the radar up, so if he noticed, okay, radar signature is coming in through here, he can alt queue up a bunch of grunts. He's got his commander here, right? He might lose a grunt or an expanding con here, but he has a resbot already made, so there's a lot to be said. There's a lot to be said about using your build power and not worrying if something is going to get sniped or not. It's like playing as greedy as possible, essentially, knowing you have the tools to kind of recover. We have a resbot already out. We're a short walk still to get grunts to these locations, so I don't mind playing this greedy. I think that's a good spot to transition from here. I know we didn't cover too much into this game, but there's a lot of great things we saw here. Just mostly between spending the starting metal so well, a proper order between like con, resbot, then grunts on a large macro map like this. I just think there's more to study here, but I just want to kind of move on and cover all the things we wanted to talk about today. You have anything you want to add to this?
I think I just want to add that in comparison to that first match, that first map, where there was it was a big open map, but there was also somewhat of a choke, right? Like moving your commander up to make that choke kind of smaller in a way makes sense there. Whereas here, the map is much more open, and so like your commander defending one spot is not really gonna be, doesn't really cut off that much. So it doesn't make as much sense to do that here. Just to throw that out there.
Great point.
One thing I'm surprised about is that he did not try any aggression at all. He has not sent a single unit to the other side of the map, which is strange to me because there are undefended cons that he could be harassing, but he hasn't even scouted it.
So, do y'all have any comments about? I can speak to that a bit, but do y'all have any thoughts on this?
I'd like to see, I mean, not that we exactly can, but see the contrast between, instead of going con first, going reza first. I reckon you could use the build power to smash out a few more grunts and be more aggressive with that. And you'd get the radar up a bit later. I think that would be the difference, really.
When you say build power, do you mean like the resbots build power?
Instead of build a resbot, suck the winds, suck the trees, and the commander doesn't need to build as many winds for energy. You commit that build power to more grunts earlier, and to getting the con done quicker because you're getting the E faster from building the resbot.
Yeah, I mean, I think he chose to be more greedy in this particular map because it's so big. And there's so many mexes that are so far apart that he decided, more of like a stylistic choice to like go out and grab as many cons as he can to get all the mexes ASAP. I think that was maybe his game plan. But yeah, I think that makes sense in terms of like if you're trying to be aggressive.
I think in general you get it out quicker, but also you don't have the win for later. So it's a good investment play, I guess.
To your point, the difference between option 1 and 2, like Resbot Con or Con Resbot first, like both of these are way better on a map like this than Grunt first, which is what we saw. I think from the other two players, like one of them went Grunt first and the other one went Tick first, and like yeah, you can go like maybe one Tick into Rescon, something like that, but playing greedier on larger maps I would say is the big takeaway from here. Whether it's Resbot first Con or Con first then Resbot, both of those are way greedier than Grunt first.
Yeah, and I think some of that might have to do with just knowing the skill level of your opponent. You know, like here, like if you try to be aggressive, there's much more of a chance that they're going to respond really well to it than if you're playing against, you know, like at my level, you know, playing against someone similar, like they might not, you know, have the APM, or they might not see it, like something might slip by, you know, so there's a greater possibility of aggression working out.
And to add on to that, if we look, our opponent's Andy, what if he defends it with the minimal amount of units he needed while still being like air quotes greedy, right? So it's like he's out greeting you and defending your early aggression, right? So it's like you're doubly behind in that regard. So perhaps this is why Ragnar's like, well, I don't need to raid you. I know you're going to macro well and defend well. I can just focus on macroing and getting up a lot of, even like out greeting you, you know? I mean, look, we went like 8 cons after 3 grunts, something like that. So it's like maybe he's playing to Andy's style of just being passive and defensive as well. Look, he already has a radar 2 LLTs made over here. It's like he knows how Andy plays. So he's just abusing that by going lots of build power, being super greedy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the start positions as well. Kind of, you can't go to the right on the blue guy, play Randy as much, because he's got his Daywalker to come in and help. If you were to go for that angle.
Yeah, I noticed that in this own game, we didn't have a chance to talk about it, but this is where Andy and Daywalker spawned, right? So there's a little bit of asymmetry between where our man Teddy and Ragnar spawned, or a difference between the two playstyles. So there's lots to unpack and analyze in this replay, but I think that's just for another time and place. Maybe in next week. I mean, well, this is still a week removed. Next week, Sunday's episode, so maybe we can spend more time talking about 2v2s or team games in general.
It's interesting to analyze though, because Ragnar and Teddy lose this game pretty much because of that aggression that Teddy faced, and Ragnar wasn't close enough to really help. Whereas if they had started in the spots that Daywalker and Andy did, they could have covered each other a little more easily.
For sure.
Losing 2 cons early at 2v2 is freaking brutal. Like, you're talking
Especially
like hundreds or
cons.
thousands of metal down.
Okay, so we have one replay left. I think it's on Supreme Isthmus. Hopefully I loaded it. It was played on the 28th today. I don't see it. Let me hit refresh. Oh, I thought I loaded it in here. This is all these 2v2s. Let me just scroll down a little more. Maybe I'm missing it. Let me double check I have this. Let me grab this replay real fast. Okay, I see. It's played on the 25th.
Gotta love scrolling through the replays in Chobby.
Yeah.
Might need some different folder sets you can take in and out.
Yeah, I could have prepared a little better. That's a good point, and I didn't have time to organize all the 2v2 replays I have currently just from yesterday. So I didn't want to. Normally when I do these things, I'll delete everything in my replays folder and just put in the games I want to look at, but I had yet to tidy up all the 2v2 replays.
I think ideally there'd be a bit of a filtering system.
One day.
Yeah, I mean it's a free to play game and it's community driven. So I mean, of all the great things in bar, I would hate to complain about that finding replays. You know, for all the replays are on a server for God's sake. So like, I mean, I've never seen that before. You can just download any game from any player. So, excuse me, Dark Spirit, I saw that you were in the Geospot here, but originally when I had downloaded this game, I had saw Raigeki was in this position. I want to say he's pretty strong, but I see you're sitting at 50 true skill, so I feel like we should maybe just analyze your start on this map.
It also mentioned
he's
take.
strong because he's playing this position a lot.
You say Raigeki's strong in this position?
Yes, because he's playing a lot of this position. I'm mainly a C because for this position you need to have a C which is cover your flank, otherwise you will get bombarded and die. Especially with the explosive geo.
Would you call this like a tech position? Like, is your role to just distribute T2 cons to your team, or is there another role you find yourself in this position sometimes?
This position is to rush Mausers on this map. That's the problem.
Okay, so
you have like 6 Mausers on the front to provide artillery support for a team.
The meta is to give some cons and reses to your C player from bots, switch into vehicles on arm, build about 3 to 5 Mausers, and then upgrade your mexes and potentially geo if you want to do that.
So pretty classic three mechs start into 3 wind turbines here. Plus 58, so just need 1 more. Looks like you go for 3 into bot lab, and then what is that? 7 more wind turbines. Energy storage. I love this.
I just want to quickly point out that the reason why Dark Spirit can get away with 3 mexes into wind is because those mexes are further away, and that walk time lets you build up enough energy to still build a wind afterwards. Whereas if they were too close together, they would actually stall you for a bit.
Good point, yeah.
This is Resbot first, so kind of touching on what we spoke about earlier. Now, normally you feed a Resbot and a con to Hitman. Do you end up selling some to other players?
Yes, the guy on the north requested also a resbot.
I see.
It's usually not what happens though.
Yeah, usually it's only con and res for the bottom.
You got to get your own reses out, getting energy before you give to the C player.
I should skip this windmill and start making exactly energy storage. Or just pump more units.
Right, like burn through this energy bar, like you're saying, chew through this before, I guess, adding on that extra wind turbine. So
it's not as bad to share some out though in a team game though.
I like this open. What is it? Is it Resbot Con, Resbot, or is it Resbot Con? What is it? 3 res.
I need 4 resbots on this position and 1 constructor. Everything else is for allies.
And then I see a couple
of
ticks.
3 ticks because for the self-defense.
Right. That's a great add there. Not too much, and maybe just enough to defend yourself. I love the positioning on this con turret here. So it's like you're walking back a little bit and getting use of your commander's build power a little. Just a nice job, nice SimCity here.
Does that touch all 4 of those mexes?
4 mexes, yes, yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, that's the important thing to me, is all 4 mexes plus the geo and the lab.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic position there. Oh, so you got 2 before geo? Okay.
Yes, because I have enough energy to support. Because of the energy storage, I can use the 2 construction turrets to build the geo faster.
This is a great open.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, geos are a great energy producer, but they're also one of the most energy expensive T1 structures. So you have to really have a lot of energy to get it out. As you can see, the energy bar is draining really fast while it's going up.
They're a bit
Yeah,
explosive.
geos are the most efficient way to get energy in the game.
I like seeing this
It's still
res bot
on
over
metal a
here.
bit.
Is yeah, see, look, but the factory is almost done reclaiming, so boom. And like immediately into 10 to 10
So
energy
something
converters.
we've missed is that Dark paid the player above him to get a T1 vehicle con, so he doesn't have to build a vehicle factory himself. So that saves like 20-30 seconds. And energy and build power and everything.
338. Nice call there. Thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, this build is very clean. Very, very clean.
Yeah, but in this game I died 4 times in a row.
Oh no.
Because it's a team game. So
Yeah.
if my allies are not making tanks for me to cover my front, I will just die. We have Whistlers
We get
and
bombed.
Pincers. Also, yeah.
Very unlucky.
Oh, that was a
In this
nice bomb.
situation, I requested air player because it was a strategy. No, not this game.
I'm not sure if we should analyze too much farther into this, but like what we've seen so far is pretty solid. Like, I mean, granted, you got bombed there and lost a big chunk of your wind turbines. I think it'd be interesting to see how you adjust to this, but the building blocks of just a Mauser rush here, I think you can emulate this exact open in your own team games on Isthmus.
Can we
I
watch this
absolutely
replay
agree.
until the T2 lab is finished, just to see how he responds to the bombing pressure?
The bombers are pretty much dead.
Well, I know, but I mean just like accounting for all the lost energy production.
Actually, I don't need more energy because the Geo
Nice.
is covering it. I'm just to self-destruct my commander to build the mech, the mechs. Lab faster.
With the, you only really need the reses and the geo.
And the
wins
worst
it.
part is I didn't see that I lost the mechs that fast.
Yeah.
Still, it's a nice fast T2 lab.
Because I was checking the front line constantly, what is going on, especially that pink made only Whistlers. The brown was losing a lot of units, and the white guy didn't support the front, he's just sent pincers to the navy base.
You flak first, huh?
It did just get bombed.
Would you normally do the flak first, or?
No, it wasn't flag first because on the left side you will see there is already a bomber. It was a bomber, just bombarded our swap strider player. So I was thinking that I will get bombed because I am the red player, so I am the target of everyone else. And now I discovered that I don't have mechs.
You shared this T2 con with your C player. That's interesting.
Yes, because he paid.
Okay.
So I had a spare metal to use. Normally I would just make a Mausers.
So 5 Mausers into con, or?
Yes. Eventually I'm sometimes make a propet to have additional vision in the front. It all depends how the players from my front line play. And because I'm high OS, I usually have a bit worse players to help me.
As
It's
the
very common.
as
So
the
it's
game
very
goes
common
on,
to get those T2 cons to the C players, because if one C player on the other side gets T2 before the other, it's very hard for the non-teched up C player to flag them.
The best part is my air player gave me a constructor, I don't know why. It shouldn't be here. Like,
One very small thing that could be improved here is when you're sharing these cons, before you share them to another player, have them tap one of the mexes, and then
I'm
your
usually
con turrets.
doing that.
Didn't have time. Like that wasn't. This next step Dark needs to do is build the Mausers. It's not
Right,
in
I know.
queue
I mean,
to
he,
do
he
that.
made two cons that he's sharing. If before he shared them to the other players, he just tapped one mex each really quick, he could have higher metal production without slowing anything down.
I only right-clicked on the Hitman's base because Hitman was on the Discord with me. So I communicated to him that he has a constructor done.
That's a fair point from both players. I do like to say that, like, yeah, you can click on the metal extractor to upgrade it and then share it to your teammate, and it'll automatically start upgrading their mexes for them. They don't have to multitask that, but fair point.
The point with tapping the mechs is you basically need a spare con or a micro, something to keep it alive. Because in the situation Dark is in, he just wants to pump out those mouses. He doesn't want to build the mechs yet. But you could do that. You just need to micro them all.
I misunderstood. So you're saying upgrade one of your own mexes and then share it?
That's
I think
correct.
that was
Yeah.
the implication, yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's not the
Upgrade or
current
just the
goal.
blueprint, yeah, and finish with the constructors, and then share a unit.
So I think you're right that because once you finish the mouse, you're gonna have to make your own con. So if you can tap one of yours and keep it alive with like a waiting con, so you're not spending your resources if you have that spare con to do that, and this time you do have the air con that's not doing anything. Yeah, that's a good play.
I'm curious, as the game progresses, do you shift the layout of your base to keep it safe if your AGO dies?
Yes, and I'm not making advanced geo. I'm making a prude
Okay.
situation, and I'm making 2 construction turrets on the left side close to the mechs, and then I make another 6 construction towers, even more on the left, because you need to build also an anti-nuke for your frontline players. So the anti-nuke will be much more on the left side, more like on the where the respots are, on the left of the respots. Those 4. Sorry, those 2, if you see them on the map, yeah, here, like here, the anti-nuke. So constructions will be more on the left, and I will have a more safe space if my ally on the water will lose. And in this game he lost, despite having 50% more resources. It happens.
C is an unforgiving mistress. I'll say that. Do y'all want to analyze more of this replay? We're about at an hour.
I don't think so.
I
Because
may be
what
worth checking out Paycore. It's a very efficient C start on his spot, the yellow player.
Perhaps something we can cover in next week's episode. So maybe if y'all are on the lookout or have some suggestions for Cliff and C starts. I know Dark Spirit. Maybe if you join us next week, you're really high up there on the C starts. So I actually just covered one of yours. But if that's something you guys want to cover in another week's episode, then I'd be happy to do that and organize it for you guys.
Can I ask a quick noob question? How many APHIS before the gantry?
It depends. You can do it with none. A lot of people have been doing it on one fusion on certain maps.
Roger.
This geo spot, you can do it. Just the mixes at like 13, 20, 30.
If you watch maps like Rosetta, for example, a lot of people will do it with just the geo, or maybe just the geo and a basic fusion.
Yeah,
Okay.
it kind of depends on how much you want to greed beforehand. You know, if you want to like get those T3 units out right away, but kind of like at the cost of building them kind of slowly, then right away is great. If you want to build up your economy a little bit more first and then produce them a little bit faster, you'll get it out later, but you'll end up being able to produce more quickly.
And how many
You want to pump
metal
out 3
would you say is a
marauders.
minimum?
I mean, you can do it on like 75, but I would try and have more if you can. closer to 100 is what people will usually be at.
Thanks.
Depends what you want to get out of it.
Yeah.
A few Marauders, 1 Razorback is probably possible, but you're going to get us the war very quickly from 70 metal income.
But if I had 60, I might be a fool. But if I had 70, I might have a plan.
You could say that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Does anyone have any other questions or topics we want to talk about? I thought about keeping it to the hour, and I don't want to. Obviously, we don't have to stop immediately, but I can end the recording pretty soon if you all think that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's call it there then. Hobo Joe, Driver, Zeteo. What was that? Seagull? Did I hear you talking a lot?
No.
Who?
Jazz is talking a lot.
Jazza, okay, thank you. I appreciate you guys coming out. For all the people who were here, thanks for showing up. Hopefully we have more opportunities to do this. I would like to make it a weekly thing, so keep an eye out for any announcements, and be sure to drop by the Bar Academy, ask your questions there, submit your replays, and get your questions answered. Cool. Thanks everyone for showing up.
Cheers, Parkas.
Yeah, man.
Yes. See you soon. Very.
Yeah, it was really informative, guys. Appreciate that.
I've listened to a